This topic deals with evaluating training. Now, the last section of the ADDIE model was concerned with evaluation, and that was the subject of a separate video. It's important that you see that video and look at it in the context of the ADDIE model, which is an extremely important model in looking at the design and delivery and evaluation of a training program. In this session we want to widen it somewhat to look at other views of evaluation. So evaluation is an important process as it allows managers or program developers, I should say, to assess and improve their training program. So evaluation is the way we get feedback on the effectiveness and the efficiency of a training program. And that allows managers and developers, program developers, to design programs which are of increasing quality, better quality, and more efficient at doing what they say they're going to do. So evaluation is a very important part of training program delivery and design. Organizations must assess training in order to provide the best learning experience for trainees. So it's the assessment from one training program to the next that leads to improving quality. It's the feedback on what went right and what went wrong, and how at the design stage these can be incorporated to develop ever better designs for training programs in the future, which will be more effective, they'll be more efficient, and also the organization will benefit by getting its message across. And the message that the organization wishes to get across may be part of the learning outcomes. So once the learning outcomes have been achieved, the organization will be happy and its money well spent. Now, the purpose of evaluation, well, receiving feedback helps trainers to analyze the extent to which objectives are met against learning activities. So the feedback helps the program designers and the program managers to evaluate the extent to which the program was successful and what went right, what went wrong. So it's gathering knowledge, or it's gathering information, if you like, about the program itself. Consistency of training policy and practice against organizational goals, and developing cost-effective solutions to any organizational concerns. Now, it's important that the training programs have a consistency. There may be trainees, there may be attendees on the programs who have attended more than one, and they come in with a set of expectations, and the expectations will be coloured by what they experienced in the past. So there should be some sort of consistency, and the programs should be well designed, and they should look professional. If the organization and the program designers are taken seriously, the attendees will take it seriously, the chances are. If it looks like something that's just been put together for the day and there's no real thought gone into it, the attendees may not take it that seriously either. So it's important that it is thought out and designed. It's a chance to raise awareness of key issues regarding training courses. So evaluation is a way of raising awareness, and the evaluation process itself, by asking questions of the attendees, how did they feel about the program, how effective was it, the whole process of doing that is emphasizing certain points, and it's bringing back to mind what happened throughout the training program. throughout the day if it's a one-day course, or throughout the week if it's a one-week course, or whatever it is. It's bringing back to mind certain instances and certain points and ensuring that they are emphasized. By being questioned at the end as a part of the evaluation process, they are reinforcing their significance. So it's important that the evaluation process is undertaken. And it's undertaken with integrity. It's undertaken to try and find the facts. It's not trying to find what the evaluators want to find. It's trying to find what the attendees actually feel about it, and to what extent the program itself was successful in what it attempted to do. Now, providing for continuous improvements. Well, one way to provide for continuous improvements is to abandon training. It may be that the training programs are not that effective, or it may be that the training programs are causing conflict and ambiguity and misunderstandings, and it may be that they are detracting from productivity. I know it sounds somewhat strange, but it's important that the training programs are designed to augment and to support what the organization is doing. And if radical changes are required, that these are widely understood within the organization, that the managers are involved, that the senior management are involved, that the people doing the jobs on the shop floor or in the office are also consulted. And failure to do that may mean don't have the training program in the first place. Leave it as it is, and try other methods of introducing change, perhaps by introducing mentoring or gradually changing the process. So it could be that providing for continuous improvement means don't have the training program. Or it could be that the training program simply needs to be redesigned to meet the needs of the learners. Perhaps the training program, when it was delivered, was not addressing the audience, was not addressing the attendees. Perhaps it was asking of them too much. It was asking that they should have skills that they clearly didn't have. Or perhaps this was a new experience for them and they weren't taken through it in a supportive manner. So maybe the training program needs to be redesigned to enable the trainees to more effectively gain from the program and to therefore lead to this continuous improvement that presumably the program developers and the business want to see. So it could be leave it as it is, which is very similar to abandoning the program itself, or it could be leave the program without any change. No matter what happens, no matter what the feedback is, just leave it as it is. It's the most cost effective, perhaps in one sense, to do. In another sense, it could be very inefficient to do because perhaps the program's not meeting its objectives. So it is a complete waste of money right from the start. But perhaps don't change the program. It's a bit like abandoning the training, really. It's if the program, the managers know that it's not been effective, then it should be changed. It should be redesigned. Leaving it as it is not an option, really. If it's not been effective and it's left as it is, it's a cost. But at least there's no cost in changing the program. There's no cost in redesign. But there is a cost to the organization of the actual delivery of the existing inefficient program. So it seems a rather silly proposal to leave something if it's not working effectively. But it's an option. It should be put on the table as well. if for no other reason than just simply to be rejected. It's also an issue as to when to introduce training in terms of people's careers or in terms of the company calendar. Companies may have seasonal demand, and if their demand increases at a certain time of the year, that's not the time to have training programs. At that time, everybody should be dedicated to meeting customer needs, which are to receive the products on time, receive good quality product, and to meet the marketing objectives that the company states. Perhaps training programs should be slotted in when the organization is just ticking by, when there's not an increased demand and when there is more time to have the training program. And also looking at people's careers, it may be inefficient to spend a lot of money training people to perform complicated tasks if they're about to retire. If they're going to retire within the next year, then why spend a lot of money on training them to perform tasks that they themselves will not need and that the company will not benefit from? How to implement effective training program? Well, first of all, and most importantly, determine the needs. What are the needs of the training program? The company should have a set of requirements. The company sees a need for some training. It may be to teach skill, a new skill, or teach workers how to use a new piece of software or a new machine, or to fix a machine, or there may be some need. And it's important to set out what that need is and to be clear about what the need is. And then, what can the training program do? Set out the objectives of the training program. Can the training program teach exactly the requirements of the organization, or can it only just partially teach it because it's asking too much of the attendees to attain such a high standard of skill? Perhaps they need more prolonged training, or perhaps training from an external source. So what are the objectives of the training program? What are its limits? The subject content of the training program should be carefully selected. There's a time dimension. Will the training program be 1 day or half a day, or will it be a 1 week, or will it run 1 day a week for so many weeks? Or what's the time dimension? And what's realistic in terms of content given that time dimension? Perhaps not everything can be done. Perhaps there are only so many hours allocated, and the time required to deliver a full understanding of the issue may be much longer. So it's a question of scaling what can be done. And selecting the participants that will take part in the training. If some participants are not highly motivated, and people go to work for different reasons. Some people go to work for their career and for the challenge of working, and they want to be involved. These are suitable for training. Some people go to work just because they want a salary, which is understandable, but they're not that dedicated to the business or not that interested. They just want to do a day's work and get paid at the end of the week or the end of the month. So it's a question of selecting people for training who will benefit from the training, and perhaps not everyone will benefit from the training. The schedule and timing of the program is important. As I said earlier, what time of the year will it take place? And this may be dependent upon any seasonal demand that the company may experience for its products. And what's the schedule? How will the program be delivered? How will it be broken up? And it should be broken up in a logical manner. But there's a conflict between the time that the attendees will be free or be allowed to attend, and also the logical manner in which the material can be broken and delivered in those time slots. So the design of the program is important and also very complex to make sure that when the attendees are there for the time that they're allowed, they get one set of ideas that's self-contained. And that will also perhaps have to include some revision of previous sessions and some indication of where the program's going, and as well as content which they can take away and which will meet part of the program's objectives. It's important that the instructors have good knowledge of the topic. It's important that the instructors are familiar with the topic and are competent to teach it and to deliver it, and also to answer questions and control the situation, control the group, and pick up on feedback and integrate the feedback into their delivery and ensure that they're carrying the whole set of trainees with them in the delivery of the program. So it's important that the instructors have good relevant knowledge and are able to present the material efficiently and, in a sense, pleasantly, that the trainees are able to follow it in a straightforward manner, and it's bordering on enjoyable. It may be enjoyable, but if it's not enjoyable per se, it is bordering on it. It's not a bad experience. The program should be coordinated. It should be linked. If there are different sessions, they should follow logically. They should be presented in a manner which enables the attendee to follow on. It's similar to reading a novel. One chapter follows from the next, and one chapter follows from the previous one, I should say. The training program is similar to that. The various points are presented in logical fashion. It's coordinated, it's designed, it's delivered, it's thought about. It's not haphazard. And the program should be evaluated. Evaluation, as we've said in the early part of this session, is very important, because this is where feedback is gained about the quality of the presentations, about the material, about the level at which it's presented, about the supporting material, about the environment in which it takes place, about the teaching method. This is when the whole program is reviewed, and it's reviewed by the attendees, and they give their opinions. And those opinions are important because they can be integrated into any future design of a program dealing with this topic. So it's important. Evaluation is extremely important. Now let's look at a model which deals with some of these issues, the Kirkpatrick model. Now, Kirkpatrick model was developed in the 1950s. It's looking at training evaluation. The model has a basic structure of 4 levels. The 4 levels determine the success of a training program. Now, this particular model of evaluation, as I said, it's just based on 4 levels, and we'll look at these. It's widely used by organizations, so it's not an obscure model. It's quite widely spoken about in industry and in management. Now, the 4 levels include reaction, learning, behaviour and results. Reaction, learning, behaviour and results. So let's look at these models. Now, the Kirkpatrick model starts at level 1, reaction. How did the learners react to the training? How was the experience? What did they feel about the training? What did they feel about what happened? Was it a positive experience, or was it a very negative experience, or was it just a non-experience? Was it just a boring waste of time? What was the reaction? Were they enthusiastic at the end? Were they talking about it? Were they involved? Now that's important. The second level is learning. How much knowledge and skills were transferred to the learner? And was there a change in attitude as a consequence of that? So, did the learner learn from the experience? Did the attendee learn? And was the attendee different at the end of the session compared to before the session? Was the attendee better equipped to do the job? Were they more motivated? Did they understand the situation more clearly? So was there learning? That's an important part. The behaviour of the attendee. Has the knowledge and skills acquired been implemented in the workplace environment? So it's one thing to learn in a training program and to have one's knowledge improved and to have a greater understanding, but does it translate in behaviour, in work? Was the attendee better at doing his or her job as a consequence of attending the program? That's an important question, because it's bordering on, was it efficient to have the program in the first place? If the attendee went back to doing his or her job and acted the same as before the program, i.e. there was no change in behaviour, then the whole program was a waste of money. End results. Did the training program benefit the organisation? Now that is a big question. The organisation spent money in developing the program. It released staff from duties to attend the program. It paid the trainers, the program manager. It went through all the phases of the ADDI phases, perhaps, in the design, the analysis, looking at the development and the learning materials, and even down through to the evaluation stage. Well, was that a waste of money? Or did the organisation benefit from the program? Let's look at reaction for a moment. Reaction, you'll remember, we'll just go back to the first slide we had here. Reaction is the level 1. So let's talk about reaction. Now, reaction takes place during the training event. This process is carried out in order to ensure that trainees are comfortable with the training event. So the reaction may be a function of the environment. There may be a function, it may be a function of their desire to be on the program. Are they comfortable with being there? Are they comfortable about attending because they may be worried or embarrassed about their ability to take on this particular training program? So the process, the reaction is a function of how comfortable they are with being there. They should understand why they're taking part in the training. They should understand the purpose of the training. Now, the purpose is actually to meet the learning objectives of the training program, but they may be couched in different words and just put onto an overhead projector or onto the computer and explained in slightly different language, not formal education language. Like, for example, you may not use the words learning outcome, but they may use the purpose of this program is to achieve the following. So it's more it's softer, and the attendees are more at ease about attending and understanding why they're there. They should be comfortable with the learning aims and activities. The purpose is not to embarrass them. The purpose is not to show up any learning difficulty that they have got with the material, or it's there to support them. It's there to improve them. It's there to meet the objectives of the program and to try to get them to understand what is required, to make them comfortable with that, and to support them in their efforts. The best way to understand your employees' reaction to training is by asking them questions. Now, this is the formative part of learning. It's like formative assessment. It's asking questions to help them, to find out where they've got to, find out what they don't understand, and try to address those issues by asking them questions. It's meant to support. It's also necessary, and a good trainer will do this, to look at their body language and their behaviour. If they look uncomfortable, the chances are they are uncomfortable. If they look confused, they're not participating, or they don't know what's going on, then they are getting lost. And it's important that the person doing the delivery has the capacity to integrate them, to bring them back into the fold, to reassure them, and to go back over points without boring the others, without making the others feel that they've been through it before. Going back over in a different way, so the others feel that this is it's reinforcing what they did before. It's going back over it in a supportive manner. But by going back over the material may bring the one who is getting lost back into the fold, back into participating. And a trained instructor has the capacity to do that. Reaction is measured at the end of the training event by using methods such as, well, it could be used smiley sheets. This type of evaluation is very common in organizations because it's cheap and easier to administer. Smiley sheets, as the term suggests, are just little icons, smiley faces, and if people tick 3 or 4 of these, they say, well, I was out of 5 to tick 4 smiley faces, well, I was that happy at the end. If they only pick 1 smiley face, they were not very happy. Or if they don't tick any, they were actually quite depressed about the whole event. So it's a cheerful way of picking up some reaction. But there are different ways of picking up reactions to situations. It could be that feedback is asked for, but if the feedback is one-to-one, it may be seen as intimidating. And also there's an opportunity for the attendee to be dishonest, because they're going to say what they think the organization wants to hear, or the trainer wants to hear. If it's done as part of a group, it depends on the group's reactions to the trainer and to the company and what the company has been doing recently, as opposed to what's happened in the training situation. again bias can be introduced. So there are various ways of going about assessing how the attendees see the program. Now another phase was learning. Learning is the amount of knowledge that's been transferred to the learners during the training event. It's the amount of knowledge. That's what the training event was attempting to do. It was attempting to impart knowledge, impart a skill about a particular piece of software, about a particular machine, or impart knowledge about the importance of team working, or the importance of participating in whatever, or how to attend committees within the workplace. So whatever the event is, it's trying to impart knowledge. It informs the trainer of the success of their training and delivery of learning content. If it's possible to measure the amount of knowledge the attendee has before the event and the amount after, if that was possible, then that is a measure of the effectiveness of the training program. But of course that's not an easy task to do. Being able to measure learning allows the trainers to address issues and concerns over the training event. If no learning has taken place, then the event has been a failure. If all the learning outcomes are clearly understood, then the training event has been a success. So it's how much learning takes place as a consequence of attending the program. A training event can be measured through handing out questionnaires at the start and end of a training event, the pre and post training scores. But of course questionnaires are biased as well. Sometimes people fill out the questionnaires as quickly as possible. They don't really think, they just want to, at the end of the day, they want to get home. They want to get out, get home. So they tick the boxes without thinking very much. Or it could be they're intimidated. They feel that if they tick a lot of negative boxes that they're going to be victimized in the future by their manager or by the organization or by the trainers themselves. So it's questionnaires suffer from problems. So there isn't a really good way of doing this, of measuring learning. And there is the problem. Evaluating learning is said to be an evaluation of the trainer, not the learners. Well, that is often held to be the case in, particularly in education, that the teachers are measured by the success of the students. But that also is flawed. If the trainer is setting the test, then why not set a simple test so that everyone will pass and the trainer will look good? But a simple test may reflect poor quality. Now, these are issues, and there are issues in education, there are issues in training. So saying that the assessment is an evaluation of the trainer rather than the learners is dangerous, because the trainers may influence the outcome of the assessments. If learners have not met the learning criteria, then there is a flaw in the trainer's ability to transfer learning. This is the contention. The methods used may be seen as bad, the activities and whether all learners have been challenged. So it's blaming the trainer if the learning objectives have not been met. Now that may be true. It may be that the trainer has been bad and not focused sufficiently on the learning outcomes or taught to the syllabus that was set out. Certainly it could be true. But it could equally be true that the learners were not paying attention, they weren't motivated, they didn't care, they didn't participate. So picking one side as opposed to the other may not be very fair. If you, as a trainer, are responsible to ensure that all learners have met the learning outcomes of the training events, now if that's the case, then as I said earlier, why not simply evaluate them very generously? In effect, it's cheating. And the temptation to cheat must be there. The trainers do this as their livelihood. This is what pays the bills. So why not make themselves look good by evaluating the learners in a way that suggests that all the learning outcomes are completely clear and understood by having simple tests. And this is why moderation may be important, and having external trainers monitoring the program and so on. It's a difficult area. Assessing learning is difficult, and as you would expect, we can't do it in a few slides in this session. It's an enormous topic that occupies educationalists up and down all countries to try and find methods of evaluating learning. And all I'm trying to indicate here is that there are problems and there are issues, and it's not as straightforward as we think. But when a training program takes place, there should be learning. We're agreed upon that. As to how to measure it, whether it actually took place, that's a different problem. Now let's move to behaviour. This level refers to a trainee's change in behaviour after the training event. So it's looking at the trainee after the event. Is the trainee different? If a change in behaviour has taken place, this means that trainees and learners have met the learning outcomes. If the attendee on the programme is working more efficiently, or has greater understanding of the issues, or is more efficient in the workplace, then the training programme has met the learning outcomes. The organisation has got good value for money. The training programme was worthwhile. That's if behaviour has changed as a consequence. Trainees and learners tend to begin implementing changes that they have learned within their workplace. They tend to implement it. As to whether it sticks, sometimes after a training program they implement the change for a short period of time and then they go back to the old way of doing things. So the training program may need reinforcement. Now, the reinforcement doesn't mean a full-scale training program in the future. It may mean mentoring, or it may mean a visit from trainers in the future to ask them how they're getting along, and has the program led to long-term change, and do they feel better about their work, etc., etc. So behaviour may change initially after a training program, but as I said, it may slip back to old habits as time goes by. So it's important that the training program is reinforced. In order to measure a change in behaviour, it's possible to make observations, have post-training interviews, and monitor progress and reviews from learners and management. It's expensive and it takes time and effort, but if the attendee is not to slip into bad old habits again, then as I said, they will need reinforcement. One way to do it is to have training interviews and backup sessions, monitor progress, and making observations about how particular tasks are undertaken and how the tasks have changed as a consequence of the training program. So that's a possibility. Now the results. Well, results refer to what's been achieved after the training program. So what was the true outcome of the training program? This level indicates whether a training event has been successful. For example, if providing training to a sales team has increased sales, this indicates that the training was successful. So if a training program was focused on the marketing section of a business, and as a consequence of the training program, the sales force were more efficient and there were greater sales and the marketing objectives were being met, then the training program could be deemed as being successful. Now that would be an outcome. Of course, you'd have to show that the increased sales and better marketing was as a consequence of the training program. It could have been something else that caused it. So logic has to prevail, and there should be some way of showing that it was linked to the training program. This level is one of the difficult ones to prove, as it involves measuring key performance indicators including return on investment, staff turnover, employee retention, and quality ratings. So looking at results is complicated. Go back to the marketing example for a moment. If after a training program sales picked up, that could be caused by many things. It could be caused by seasonal factors. It could be caused by an improvement in the general economy of the country. It could be caused by a change in fashion somewhere in society. It could be caused by many different factors, not by the training program. Now, if it's caused by something else and the training program takes the credit for it, that's wrong. So as I said, logic has to prevail. It's important to try and work out exactly what's causing the increase in sales. Now, techniques used for evaluating training. Well, level 1 reaction. Could be feedback questionnaires. As I said, could be biased. There could be issues about filling out the questionnaires, fear of intimidation if they put down a lot of negative comments, or perhaps they're not paying attention to filling out the questionnaires. A lot of bias involved in questionnaires. Discussion with individuals or groups about training events. Again, biased. They may feel intimidated to tell the truth about what happened or in the event. They may be worried about losing their jobs or be seen as troublemakers. But these are techniques that have to be used because simply there are no other suitable techniques. So trying to get feedback which is honest is difficult but important. Level 2, learning. Well, you could have pre and post questionnaires. Pre is before, when the learners turn up for the learning program, for the training program. They have a questionnaire, and they have a similar questionnaire at the end to try and assess the difference. Again, it's open to bias. They may wish to ingratiate themselves and say that the training program was absolutely marvelous, when deep down they didn't like it. But they say it's marvelous because they're hoping to be rewarded by being seen as a good attendee and to be taken on future training programs. So it's biased. That's the point. There is an issue there. Observations and assessments. Well, observations may be quite accurate. The assessor may look at the attendees and see how they participated throughout the day. If they were engaged in the activities, if they were enthusiastic, if they asked relevant questions throughout the training program. And also assessments. Did they participate in the assessments? Did they try to work out the right answers? Did they apply themselves? Were they enthusiastic? That's a possible indicator. Level 3 behaviour. Well, conducting self-assessment questionnaires. Again, very biased. Self-assessment questionnaires, they wish to make themselves look like they're participating and interested and involved, and they are applying what they've learned in the training program, so that the behaviour has changed for the better. So they may fill out the questionnaire in a very biased manner. It's a cheap way of getting information, but as to whether it's information is another issue. It may just be data, and it may say more about the person filling out the questionnaire, say more about them as a person than about them as a learner and what they've picked up from the training program. Observation and monitoring in the workplace. Well, observation may be used, watching the person work without spying on them, just watching the person work and seeing how he or she goes about their work, making observations about their contribution, and just generally monitoring what's going on. It may be an indication as to whether their behaviour has changed as a consequence of the training program. Perhaps looking at customer, staff and management feedback, not just asking the person who attended the training program to self-assess, but looking at the customers, the people who get the output from that person. These could be internal customers within the organisation. Perhaps the person's working in a department that feeds a component or a piece of information to another department. They become the internal customer, and what's their view of the person after the training program? Is it better, the same or worse? Looking at the people who work with that person, looking at the management, the manager who is responsible for that person. The results section, well, look at the annual financial reports. It's very wide, and it's unlikely that a training program involving a small proportion of the workers is going to have a big impact on the efficiency of the organisation. It may have some impact, but there are so many other factors that need to be looked at in the financial reports of the business. Perhaps the management accountants will have more detailed figures about the efficiency of particular sections, and they may be in a position to shed more light on efficiency. The annual reports of the business probably are far too big and too complicated, because they're looking at sales, they're looking at changes in the market, they're looking at the competitive situation of the business, they're looking at all sorts of figures, and it's difficult to assign improvement in the performance of the organisation down to training alone. There are so many other factors. Quality assurance is looking at the quality arrangements. What are the number of rejects, reject work that is happening after the training event as opposed to before it? It may be an indicator that the training program was successful. If the training program was teaching people how to use a machine efficiently and accurately and properly, and after the training program there was less rejected material and productivity had increased, perhaps that was down to the training program. So it's a question of being specific, trying to focus in on what the outcomes are and whether they can be assigned to the training program? Are they related to the training program? There could be interviews with departments to see how departments are functioning after the training program as opposed to before it. Are the departments working more effectively or not? The conclusion to all of this, well, there are various types of evaluation methods organisations can use in order to evaluate a successful training program. We've looked at the Kirkpatrick model and the ADDIE models, and in the terms of the ADDIE model we looked at evaluation as the last component and briefly ran across what was required for good evaluation there. The Kirkpatrick model is somewhat more detailed, but as we've seen as we worked our way through it, it's also very complex to get accurate information. It's important to consider time and costs. Don't lose focus. The training programs are costly and they take time and they need proper planning, preparation, delivery, evaluation. So it's not a cheap exercise. So it's important to bear that in mind right throughout. And think about the validation of data collection. How accurate is the data collected? And I've emphasized this right throughout the session. Use of questionnaires and monitoring to see what was the pre and post behaviour of the attendees on a course. That's difficult. So training programs are important, but evaluating learning is complex. And looking at the outcomes of training programs is very complex. So sometimes the training program takes place in the hope that it will be successful, rather than, if you like, scientifically testing whether it's been successful or not. So that concludes our review of particularly the Kirkpatrick model. That's a reference that's been used throughout, and that's all I'm going to do in this session, so thank you for watching.